What is up, guys? Welcome back to the pod. I hope you had a fantastic weekend. We have a little bit of a variety show here today, a little bit of a smorgasbord, if you might say so, of topics that we're going to kind of touch on before we close it out with a little bit of a preview for AEW's Fyter Fest Night 2 that will be happening this Wednesday. But as always, thank you guys so much for downloading and listening to the pod. I definitely appreciate it, and I always mention it's cool to see where you guys are checking in from and listening at all over the world. It's pretty stellar to see. So just thank you guys so much for the continued support. I will try to get a little bit better at being consistent, or at least having at least one core show on a specific day. Full disclosure, I'm most likely changing jobs here within the next few days, couple weeks, so gonna see what that schedule looks like and see what opportunities that opens up, because hopefully I'll be working from home a little bit more and things of that nature. But we'll dive a little bit more into that and the dynamics of that if and when that is a for sure thing. But like I said, we have a little bit of everything to get into here today, so we will dive right into it. We finally are aware of who Ric Flair's final opponent will be in his final match of his career, supposedly. I saw somewhere on Twitter someone had referenced or compared it to Kiss, the band Kiss's Forever Last Forever farewell tour that's gone on for like 18-20 years or some shit now. Just legit cracked me up. It's it's just one of those things, and I get it too. It's probably hard to step away, and especially as time has progressed. And if you're someone like Ric Flair, I mean, you were obviously the man back in the day, but seeing just how far technology has advanced, how interactive, and how long and how many different avenues you can really extend your career for, and especially nowadays, it's pretty insane to think about. I mean, we see Sting out there, not weekly, but a good amount, I think more than what anyone probably would have expected, at least for myself. I'll speak for myself in that regard. I definitely did not expect Sting to be in the ring as much as he has been and doing the crazy shit that he's been doing. And again, I mean, not saying Ric Flair still obviously is much older than this Sting, or at least maybe like 10 years or maybe close to that. Hasn't been wrestling as much, but he seems to have been getting some in-ring work done and training. He had released that training video with Jay Lethal a couple months ago or so. So yeah, I mean, it's not like he's just been sitting around on the couch not doing shit. He has at least been being active and doing what he needs to do, I guess, in the ring. So we'll get into that a little bit more in a second here, but the official match for Ric Flair's final matchup has been announced as a tag team match, and again, that is set to take place on July 31st at 6:05 p.m. Eastern Time. At least that's when the card itself will kick off at, which is a pretty cool throwback, the 6:05 start time, and that is in Nashville, Tennessee. That, of course, is happening on SummerSlam weekend, and like I said, the final match has been announced as a tag team match. You have Ric Flair teaming up with his new official son-in-law, Andrade El Idolo, versus Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett, the man himself, who has seemingly come out of nowhere with the past couple weeks. I mean, obviously he's been doing a podcast. He hasn't been completely hidden, but he, at least being active in any type of wrestling capacity or on-screen wise, he hasn't really been doing much. He's been more so behind the scenes. And he goes from first being announced as the special guest referee for the tag team match between the Usos and the Street Profits that's going to be happening SummerSlam in obviously Nashville. And now he is facing off against Ric Flair in Ric Flair's final tag team match, final match, hopefully. Wouldn't that be some shit if that was a swerve, right? Like, oh, we said it was his final match, but that was just a tag team match. It's just this is his final singles match or some shit. God, part of me wouldn't be surprised with that, but I'm not mad about it, at least if setting everything else aside, right? All the other bullshit that may surround everything about this. I think it's a good pairing. I think in all aspects, I think Andrade is a perfect partner for Ric Flair, and I think Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett are perfect opponents for Ric Flair, and obviously Andrade. I'm just going to leave Andrade to the side because, I mean, clearly Andrade is good, but the focus more so is on Flair and what Flair's capabilities are in the ring. And I think, I mean, look, you you face Flair off against the dude that he's literally been training with, being Jay Lethal. I mean, that right there is a no-brainer. It's kind of equivalent to, and this is probably a stretch, but it just reminded me of like Ronda Rousey and Natalia recently, right? I mean, you have one of Rousey's first opponents in her new title run be Natalia, someone that she literally learned the business from and kind of learned the ropes, and when she first was signing in, or had first signed into WWE and was training in the ring and kind of getting a grasp for it, Natalia was pretty much her right-hand man in that regard. Taught her the ropes, literally, and what have you. I mean, obviously, Ric Flair, I mean, Jay Lethal didn't train Ric Flair, but Jay Lethal's been the one who's kind of been responsible, and I'm sure there's been probably a few other people on Andrade as well, but Jay Lethal has been the main one that we've been made privy to as well, that has been taking care of Ric Flair and getting it back in in-ring shape. So I think that's a perfect pairing right there. And then look, Jeff Jarrett is just, again, perfect for so many different reasons. You have the throwback there, the history, dating back to so long. I mean, you have Jeff Jarrett's father, the history with Ric Flair there. I mean, you have Jeff Jarrett and Ric Flair in TNA, WCW. There's just so many things. And Jarrett, while he, I guess, is a little older, obviously, right? He still seems to be in very good shape. You know, I haven't seen him in any matches recently, although he did have that match against Effie, I believe it was. What was that, a couple months ago now? In GCW. So it's not like, again, he either has been just sitting around the couch not doing shit either. So I think whether it was Conrad, everyone who went or had a factor into putting that specific match together and that pairing was just spot on, and just kudos to them. Again, I will not be purchasing this event. I'm just going to leave it there. I'm just not purchasing the event. But kudos to Conrad. The card itself looks pretty dope, and it looks like a really good lineup. And I think it really came together nicely. And the production looks good. From the website at least. I guess we'll see clips. At least I'll see maybe some clips after the event itself airs. But, I mean, everything, the StarCast event has always had a good review, and it's always something that I've wanted to attend. This specific card I would not have attended, but everything else surrounding StarCast is pretty dope, and I think it's really, I'm happy for Conrad. He's kind of like all of us, right? At least from what I know of his story, he started off as a fan, you know, and I mean, look, he obviously had different ins and outs and with who he knew and stuff like that, but regardless, it's just pretty cool to see. So I'll run down the card really quick here for anyone who is interested, in no particular order, just going off of their website. They have Kerry and Ricky Morton with Robert Gibson teaming up against Brian Pillman Jr. and Brock Anderson with Arn Anderson in their corner as well. You then have the Wolves, Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards, dope tag team right there, facing off against the Motor City Machine Guns, Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, which, side note, I'm so happy that this got brought up here. I was thinking about them earlier. I think, FTR had mentioned that they wanted to face off against the Motor City Machine Guns before they retire as a tag team, and fucking A, man, thank you. Like, I have always been, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I'm a diehard fan and I know everything that they've been doing the past however many years, but one of the things that always stood out to me, and one of the teams and talents that always stood out to me from TNA that I remember, was the Motor City Machine Guns. And I just thought they were so cool. And for whatever reason, the pointing to the palm on the hand is just, that just always stood out to me. And of course, them as a team, they just speak for themselves. But I don't think they get enough credit and enough love as they should. So shout out to them. And I think that match right there is probably going to be a potential show stealer itself. After that, you have Ray Phoenix, depending on your pronunciation, teaming up with Taurus, going up against Laredo Kid and Bandito, which, again, is going to be a stellar match right there. Up next, you have Josh Alexander, your Impact World Champion, facing off against Jacob Fatu. This match right here is I think, going to be and again, shout out to Conrad again for throwing a women's match on here, but this match is pretty cool. You have Rachel Ellering facing off against Jordan Grace, which is your Impact Knockouts champion, and they are facing off against Deonna Purrazzo as well. And Deonna Purrazzo, I think, is just really, she's one of those people since her WWE release or departure. I don't remember if she requested her release or what happened specifically, but she's just really been one that just took her career in her hand and just said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna show you guys," and just really made herself into a star. So I think that match is gonna be a show stealer in and of itself, maybe too. Maybe not necessarily a show stealer, but I think it's gonna really catch people off guard. The next matchup you have is Killer Cross with hair, which is so crazy to see. And of course, in his corner is Scarlett Bordeaux facing off against Harry Smith. After that, you have Clark Connors, who made his debut, to a lot of us most likely, at the Forbidden Door pay-per-view, facing off against Ren Narita. Then, what is probably a lot of people, or what a lot of people are looking forward to as well, is them boys, the Briscoes, facing off against Marshall and Ross, the Von Erichs. So that's going to be a fun tag team match there. And the Briscoes are also going to be facing off against FTR at Death Before Dishonor. God, I forget the date of that offhand, but that's coming up pretty quickly as well. I think maybe even this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it's a pretty stacked card. It's really a really good lineup, a really diverse lineup. So I think it'd be cool to see the outcome to a lot of the matches, but just to hear the feedback from Ric Flair's final match, final maybe match. I hope it goes well. You know, I'm not gonna get into that again, but I hope everything goes well and everyone is healthy coming out of it. A little bit of a health update from Big E, nothing too extensive, but I did hear, I'm not sure exactly if it was on an interview he did or what exactly, or where exactly he released the information rather, but he mentioned that the road to recovery is probably going to be a little bit longer than what most of us hoped for, obviously. He will be going back in for pretty much another check of his scans, not until March of 2023, so March of next year, obviously. So that is obviously quite some time from now. But I think at this point, and the majority of us as fans are just so thankful that dude is able to live his everyday life. I believe he is out of his neck brace, if I'm not mistaken. He's obviously not in the clear to do, probably the majority of things that all of us take for granted, just everyday basic functions. But at least he's able to be out and about and be active. And he even mentioned, he had mentioned that if this is the end of his wrestling career, then he's thankful for what he's got up until this point and everything and that his career has been. I mean, obviously not word for word. But he had mentioned too that if he was bound to a wheelchair, he would have learned to make the best out of that essentially as well. And that's just how he was raised and his mindset. He'll make the best out of any situation. And again, it just speaks to how Big E is as a human being. So sadly, if this is going to end up being the end of his in-ring career, I'm just happy that he got to be WWE champion, even though it may not have been to everyone's liking, the length of time and how it played out and the story and all that good shit, but at least he got to call himself WWE champion. You know what I mean? Hopefully this isn't the end. Again, this is hopefully just a long recovery. But yeah, man, it just sucks. Someone with Big E's positivity and his infectious charisma, you really do feel it missing from TV. It's a weird thing. So shout out to Big E. I hope he's doing well. I hope he stays in good spirits. And if you need anything in Florida, man, I got you. The next big topic that seems to be kind of hit or miss depending on where you read and who you listen to is WWE going back to TV 14 as a rating, at least for Monday Night Raw. That was apparently slated to happen on July 18th for today's Monday Night Raw, but that has been pushed back. Andrew Zarian was the one who originally released a tweet regarding the change in the TV rating that, again, was originally supposedly slated for July 18th's Monday Night Raw, but hasn't been pushed back, but maybe the release date of the July 18th date, rather, it wasn't necessarily spot on, or it wasn't supposed to be that date to begin with, depending on where you read and where you go from there. But essentially, long story short, and what it seems to be, they're going back to TV 14, at least for Monday Night Raw, and that shit'll happen on a random Raw, so just look out for that, guys. But, this is my official reporting, right? You like that? But yeah, look, I'm excited for it, and I think some people are like, oh, don't be so excited, you know, it's not going to change shit, blah, blah, blah. And in a lot of ways, that's true. That's, I'm not going to say a pessimistic way to view it, but that it's because it's fair, you know, right? When it comes to WWE, it's very fair. They have crushed a lot of goodwill, and a lot of just in the benefit of the doubt factor is just kind of not there in a lot of ways. But I'm here to bring some positivity, guys. I do think that this could be a positive going forward. I'm not sitting here thinking that, okay, let's say next week on Raw, they go to the TV 14 rating, we're going to see, it's going to be the Attitude Era, like, starting over again, right? And let's be honest, like, what exactly is that? What really do we want from that? Like, definitely don't want the bra and panties matches and all that bullshit back, and what was it, the mud matches that they were like, that dumb shit, right? I'm not really here for that. Don't really want anyone on commentaries talking about puppies and shit like that. Don't really need any like sexual, like what was it that Edge and Lita had, that live sex celebration. And look, and I know I'm being super nitpicky here, but just kind of like narrowing down. I think what we all want is just the excitement back for Raw and for WWE in and of itself, whether it's Raw or SmackDown. I think that we just want that excitement back, and I think that's where we all are getting our hope from, that this rating kind of triggers our memory to better times in a lot of ways, you know? So I think that's why people are excited. So I think everyone who's out there like just shitting on everyone or calling them stupid or foolish for getting their hopes up, I think that's a little extreme, you know? I think that, yeah, we shouldn't hope for night one to see an obvious change, or even the first month or 2 months. I think that's going to be a drawn out process. And I think that it's more of a mentality more so than a rating, obviously. And I think that that's, and credit to people who have already spoken about this, but I think that's where they're coming from as well. And obviously this isn't a very original idea, but it's a common sense one. And I think the main argument against the people who are being more pessimistic about it is they're like, look, you know, you're still going to have the same people in charge, you're still going to have the same creative team, and that's true. And that's true for both sides, because while, yes, the rating will be changing, it is just a rating at the end of the day, and it doesn't mean really anything to us unless the people who are in charge of the product change. And what that mainly means is just more business opportunities, or maybe different business opportunities for WWE as a whole, for marketing, for production, and shit like that, and sponsorship. So that is a main driving factor. And again, and probably USA is seeing what they're doing over on TNT and TBS and saying like, oh shit, like look at the type of matches they're having and the excitement that they're having. So we need to shake it up. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, WWE has been PG-13 since 2008. So we're on 15, 16-ish, going on 16 years at this point. With the same format and the same writing. Format, that's much longer, I'm sure, and we can get into a whole podcast about that. But yeah, like I'm excited about it, and I think it hopefully is a good sign, but my understanding is that that's more of a USA dictation to WWE, and WWE kind of will follow suit. And if you notice as well, it was just mentioned specifically for Raw and not for SmackDown. And while, yes, we did have Pat McAfee mention it on this past Friday night SmackDown, specifically, actually, which is pretty cool. But Pat is known to kind of just say shit that comes to his mind, you know? Like, maybe he shouldn't have said it. Maybe it will be a change for SmackDown as well. But it's two totally different networks, so I don't specifically know how that goes into play, or what executives make the change and call for the ratings and things like that. But at least for Monday Night Raw, I think it's a promising sign. And look, if you want to be negative, then that's on you. But me, I'm going to be hopefully more optimistic about it. While I'm not expecting an immediate change on night one that they change the rating, I'm hoping for a small trickle effect, and I'm hoping that and at least not for nothing, I hope we do see at least small changes, like small immediate changes, and whether they whether they use it as an excuse to revamp the whole show itself and make it a big like a season beginning and a season, like their whatever they want to call some of their random special shows. I think you could really make it a big deal, or you could not address it at all. And I think that they'd be kind of foolish not to address it. I'm not sitting there saying like, oh, like start the show saying welcome to our new show or our newly rated TV 14 format or anything like that. But I think in a lot of ways, less is more in the sense that change subtle things that'll be obvious to us as viewers and give us that feeling of excitement again. And I think that maybe the PG-13 rating just had more restrictions. Obviously, that's a no-brainer. But maybe just creativity-wise, and maybe this is going to be the kick in the ass that the team and Vince, probably not. But hopefully this will be a kick in the ass that they need and just an excuse to shake shit up, and to just change. You would think that they had someone above them controlling them and saying, you can't change your format. You have to start the show this way. You have to go to commercial break this way. You have to bring a wrestler out and then make them stand out there for 18 minutes before they do anything else. Like, it's just like, damn, it's like you would think that like they're being like held prisoner in that regard. And it's just baffling to me. While yes, in a lot of ways you do absolutely need structure and you do need that format in play, but it's like, damn, like you can breathe a little bit, guys, too. So I think that's where the excitement and everything is coming from. So until that officially happens, and I'll give it about a month or so to really put judgment to it, we'll see how it goes. Sasha Banks, guys. Sasha Banks has stirred up some controversy yet again without doing anything. It's amazing, right? It amazes me how opinionated we as fans are when it comes to people's finances. Like, whether it's Tony Khan or just anything, it's just like, it just blows my mind when people are saying like, oh, like he needs to watch his budget buying all these wrestlers. Like, bro, like I think he has a very good idea of where his money is at. So it just, things like that just really tickle me. But Sasha Banks has made news once again for apparently having a asking and charging price of $30,000 per appearance. That apparently was made privy and made public once her C2E2 appearance was officially announced by C2E2, which we spoke about on the most recent show prior to this one here on the pod. But people are kind of losing their minds saying that she's a diva, literally, and she's asking for prices that people like Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair and all of them would ask for, and just comparing her to stars that she apparently isn't at the level of. And with that price, and I think that I will say that's foolish, and I think anyone who's saying that that's absurd and that's an insane asking amount, I think that is a little foolish, and you just really got to break it down. Now, with a few caveats, I will say, now, depending on the length of the appearance. Now, if we're saying she's charging $30K a pop and she's only going to be there for an hour, maybe, then yeah, I think that's a little absurd. You know what I mean? So I think if we're talking $30K for an appearance and she's there for either, if for instance like something similar to this, if it's like a Saturday and Sunday event and she's there for 2 to 3 hours per day or 2 hours per day or something like that, then yeah, fuck yeah. And I think that she may be even undercharging a little bit, especially if it's going to be a couple hours for multiple days. Then fuck yeah, I think she's probably undercharging in that respect. Now, like I said, if she's charging $30K for barely an hour, then yeah, that's, maybe something else. Because then you're talking about actual fan experience, right? Because you're going to want to get the amount of people, which we'll get into in a second. You're going to want to get a good amount of people, at least a specific amount, to obviously meet your bottom line. But the goal, obviously, is to make a profit. So you're going to want to get in X amount of people to counteract the asking price that she's going for. So that's why I'm saying she has to be giving at least longer than an hour, which I'm sure she is. But until we know like detailed specifics like that, I won't get too like judgmental in that regard. But it just blew my mind that saying that she's legit a diva and she's asking way above what she's worth and shit like that. Like, This girl is coming off of this woman is coming off of a monumental and legendary WWE career. She's barely in the prime of her career wrestling wise. She was just on The Mandalorian, and the second she hits Hollywood, she's going to be a star. You know, I'm not saying she's going to be the next, like, A-lister, but she's going to be a star, and just give her time. Like, the look and the vibe and the presence that she gives off is just something about it that screams superstar. So, again, which blows my mind that WWE even allowed themselves to get into this situation with her, but look, $30K, guys, for an appearance is not absurd. So if you break it down, let's say, and this isn't even that far off, like I mentioned on the previous show, for, I believe it was a picture opportunity with her, so like a photo op, she was charging $90 to take a picture with her. And if you wanted to get an autograph, it was $70. So let's just say, happy medium, we'll say she's going to charge $100 per head to take a picture with her. You're going to say, bare minimum, you get 300 people there. 300 people paying $100 per pick, because they're going to do either one of two things, right? They're either going to get their autograph or they're going to get their picture. And if you have that low of a minimal, then you're obviously going to finagle the prices a little bit more and probably balance it out more, or making it even across the board or whatever, you'll balance it out. But let's just keep it at that. We'll say $300 and they're going to pay $100 per pick. That's your money right there. That's your $30K right then in and of itself. And when you say 300 people, it sounds like a lot, but you can get through 300 people expeditiously. You know what I'm saying? So especially at an event like this, where the whole goal for people is to get to as many photo opportunities as they can. So yes, they would most likely love to sit there and chat with Sasha Banks, Mercedes Varnado all day. Their goal too is to get to another table that they already paid money for. So it's not like they're gonna try to drag ass either. And you have security there, there's obviously, that's not a problem. My thing is, let's say you make your minimum of people $500, okay? Or I'm sorry, $500. 500 people, okay? That's your bare minimum or your max, whatever you want to say. You're guaranteeing at least 500 people are buying those tickets. That's $50K right there. So you're already profiting $20K off of Sasha Banks right then and there in of itself. And that's just for one day. That's just one day, one set of 500 people. You change that bottom line from 500 people to 1,000. So let's say she's there for 2-3 hours and she has an opportunity, and you can guarantee that she'll get through 1,000 fans, and you can even break that up, whether she's going to be there the one day or 1 day or 2 days. And obviously, like I said before, this is the scenario that we're in is the C2E2. So she's going to be there Saturday and Sunday. You break it up, 500 people per day. That's $100K right there. And you only spent $30K to bring her in. Okay, granted, yeah, you're probably going to have to pay like a photographer or something like that, but in that regard, you've been doing this shit for, obviously this isn't the first event, so you probably have in-house photographers, you have shit worked out, so it's not going to charge you thousands, or cost you thousands and thousands to hire extra help. And it's literally, you just bring her in, you pay her $30K, you pay for whatever other obligations or whatever other asking points that she's going for, and at that point you would have already had that figured out prior to signing the contract and bringing her in. So whatever other arrangements or whatever, her travel accommodations, if she wants green fucking M&Ms, you get the shit ready, you know what I mean? So all you gotta do is bring her ass in, pay the $30K, get her green M&Ms if that's what she wants, take her to the table for, 2 hours on Saturday, 2 hours on Sunday. That shit's gonna fly by, and she's done. She's got her $30K. You've raked in, at that point, minimum, if we're going with 500 per day, you've brought in a minimum of $100K off of Sasha freaking Banks, dude. Like, what? Like, and it's just, that's why it kind of baffles me that people were like, oh, 30K is insane. Like, and that's just me, like, lowballing it and just doing, like, bare math, right? Just basic math. And again, I'm not saying that it's gonna break out even to that specific amount. I know there's probably some travel fees and other shit that is in there that I'm not accounting for. And I'm not saying it's going to be an exact, 70K profit, but you're going to profit a shit ton. You're going to make what you paid and then some for Sasha Banks, dude. So I think if you can scrounge up the money to get the $30K and you can guarantee, and you can book rather, Sasha Banks, You're crazy if you don't. So if you're a promoter out there and you have the opportunity to book her, but you see that 30K and you squawk at that, then I'm sorry, like then you don't deserve her. I'm just gonna be point blank with you. You don't deserve her at that point. And while we're talking numbers and WWE-ish, at least related, we will end up I guess whatever you want to call it, the weekend breakdown or the weekly breakdown, whatever the fuck you want to call this, with WrestleMania numbers. I just found this fascinating, and again, I'm a little bit of a nerd. If you haven't already heard, especially from my little Sasha rant there, I love numbers. I love economics, statistics, like all this bullshit. So, if you don't care about this is another reason why I throw the breakdown of the lineup of each show for you guys. So if it's a more diverse show like this, you can kind of pick and choose what you want to listen to. I am not offended. But there was a report, at least the article that I'm getting my information from is the comic book website, so comicbook.com, so shout out to them. They released an article with the numbers from WrestleMania 38 of this year that aired from Dallas, Texas. So I'll just rewrite from their article because I just really found it fascinating. It's just kind of mind-blowing to think of these numbers, but they said WWE WrestleMania 38 is the first showcase of the Immortals to eclipse $200 million, as confirmed by Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson and Arlington Mayor Jim Ross, which is fucking hilarious and just so fitting. And they even mentioned, in parentheses, not to be mixed up with WWE Hall of Famer Jim Ross, WrestleMania 38 generated $206.5 million in economic impact for the Dallas and Arlington regions of Texas. These figures come from a study conducted by the Enigma Research Corporation. I'm sure no affiliation with Jeff Hardy there either. For the third consecutive season, WrestleMania was a 2-day event as it took place on both April 2nd and 3rd inside AT&T Stadium this year. This full weekend of festivities garnered the praise of the Dallas Cowboys as Chief Brand Officer Charlotte Jones offered her congratulations on behalf of AT&T Stadium's home team, and she gave her praise. Good for them. Mayor Ross also offered his applause, so good for them. But yeah, then they just kind of go on to continue to pat each other on the back for bringing in over 200 million. But a little bit more of number-wise, they mentioned WWE WrestleMania 38 brought in a total of 156,352 fans across its 2 days of shows, with spectators coming from all 50 states and 53 countries. As revealed in WWE's statement, 67% of WrestleMania 38 attendees were from outside of the Dallas-Arlington area and stayed in the Lone Star State for an average of 3.5 nights. Over $25 million was spent on hospitality for those extended stays. With all factors considered, the economic impact that came from WrestleMania 38 was the equivalent to the creation of 1,777 full-time jobs for the Dallas-Arlington region. Wonder where that money is going to, specifically with their taxes. And then they just go on to continue to pat each other on each other's backs and say that we hope that you're here again soon, which I'm sure that they do. It just goes to show how much of a juggernaut WWE and WrestleMania specifically is. It's another reason as a fan that we can be frustrated, because that's just another reason why they are not pressed to change anything. And that's why, you can branch off of the whole rating change not really meaning anything, because they bring in stupid money like this, right? Like for 1-3-4 day event, obviously WrestleMania was a 2-day event, but you want to talk about the time that they're there in the city itself. It's just mind-blowing. It's just insane, so that's why it's frustrating. I'm not going to go off on too much of a rant right here because we're getting a little lengthy and I still want to hit on AEW here, but it's incredible to see the legit economic impact that they have, and there's no reason or no surprise rather that all your major cities bid and legit bid and fight to get WrestleMania each year. It's pretty much the equivalent of the Super Bowl at this point. I would kind of want to, now that I mentioned the Super Bowl, I'd be fascinated to see the economic impact for the Super Bowl itself, which again may not be fair since WrestleMania is more of a multi-day event, but just maybe in comparison. But that wraps up the WWE portion of things and a little bit of outside the news there, so we will get right into AEW Fyter Fest Night 2 lineup. The lineup itself is pretty stacked, and I'm sure it's got to be the main event. Although I'm pretty certain it was last week I said that Jon Moxley and Takeshita was going to close the night out, and it ended up being the Tag Team Championship match, which shout out to Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland for winning the Tag Team Championships. Hope everything is going well in Keith Lee, I almost said Swerve Lee, in Big E's life with his friends and his family and whatever the situation is that he's going through. I hope and wish all of them nothing but the best. But the card that we're getting for Fyter Fest Night 2 is, like I said, just pretty much stacked. And I think last week I may have not correctly announced this barbed wire match, the specific title for it. There does seem to be a few variations that I've seen kind of floating around from different sources and sites, but going directly from AEW's Twitter page themselves is the official title of the match. I'll get into that here in a second. But it looks like the full lineup for the card that we're getting for Fyter Fest Night 2 will be Jon Moxley teaming with Wheeler Yuta facing off against the Best Friends. We have Brody King facing off against Darby Allin. Luchasaurus and Christian Cage facing off against the Varsity Blondes, which of course is Brian Pillman Jr. and Griff Garrison. Remember, Christian Cage hates Griff Garrison because he thinks that he looks like Jungle Boy, which I just think is fucking hilarious. And then we have, in what I'm assuming, like I said, is going to be the main event, Eddie Kingston facing off against not just Chris Jericho, but the Painmaker, Chris Jericho. Jericho promised that the past gimmick he had spawned in New Japan Pro Wrestling, the Painmaker, will be making his return to face Kingston. And fun fact, the Painmaker is apparently undefeated as well, so that's just an interesting little tidbit there. But the official titling from the match, or of the match itself, from AEW's official handle on their Twitter page, or on their Twitter, from their Twitter account rather, is a barbed wire everywhere death match. So there's that. Oh, and also, guys, the most important part, I'm so sorry, most important part. The Jericho Appreciation Society will be suspended in a shark cage above the ring because it is Shark Week, guys. So I almost would be remiss to leave that out. So I'm so happy I saw that last little note there. But all that aside, I think this is going to be a fucking kick-ass match. I think you can't have a match that's literally titled a barbed wire everywhere death match and not have it be good. Although, I say that, and we did get a barbed wire explosion, death match explosion, or whatever the fuck it was, the death match. And there was just, like, little sparklers. So, it still just fucking tickles me, too. Yeah, and ironically enough, Eddie Kingston was involved in that as well. So I hope this isn't a sign of things to come. But that being said, that is your lineup for Fyter Fest Night 2. They're hailing from Duluth, Georgia, which I think is pretty cool. Fun fact, it's only about 6 hours from Orlando. I looked into it because, like I said, some things may be changing at work, so I may or may not have some free time coming up, depending on how things work out. But there's, like, really no tickets left at all. Or the tickets that were left were just, like, stupid priced, and I was not paying, like, $100+ for seats that I could barely see the ring or be an obstructive view. Then it just wasn't worth it. But I did look into it just because I'm crazy. And there's that. But, yeah, guys. So that is your AEW Fyter Fest Night 2 lineup again. I'm actually really looking forward to Night 2. For what I'm just really enjoying the shit out of Christian Cage's gimmick. And I think his appearance, him coming out with that look, his fucking turtleneck, his just suave just appearance, he just looks and just gives off that smarmy, I'm better than you, no offense, MJF, vibe, and it's just really, like, you just kind of want someone to smack him across the face, and I love it, and that's the whole idea. But thank you guys, as always, so much for tuning in and checking out the pod. I will hopefully be back with you guys sooner rather than later. As always, I hope you have a fantastic week, and let me know what you guys are thinking about everything pro wrestling related on Twitter at ASHMANNS or on the show's Twitter page at KickAshPodcast_. Take care, guys. Have a great night.